Hello and welcome. I'm Giovanni Hallart. I'll be working on this painting of Chun-Li. And we're going to go in there while it's still a podcast by Ryan Mango. We'll keep things going. Microphone is going to be off. I will respond to questions as I see them put on the screen. All right, so let's get into it. Okay, let's go. You can follow me on Instagram, Blue Sky, Tumblr, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, and Patreon for more exclusive. Links are in the bio. All right, let's go.
Follow a juror home just so if you can see, maybe you could understand their perspective a little better. Don't do that. To see if they have all the facts needed to deliberate, definitely don't do that. But those are very obvious. You know, some are up for debate. Some people think it's okay, some people don't think it's okay. And one of that includes cuddling your defense attorney. One New York Post article reads, Karen Read spotted canoodling with lawyer as jury deliberated over whether she murdered her cop boyfriend. There is an iPhone Live photo posted of Karen Read outside of a fancy Boston steakhouse with Alan Jackson from the back. He's standing behind her, one arm around her waist. So she's facing forward, he's behind her, and the other arm is like firmly around her chest. It seems like everyone's giggling, goofing around, but it definitely seems intimate, and online, everybody just starts freaking out. First of all, Alan Jackson is married. He's worn a wedding ring throughout the entirety of the trial, but now the timing of it all also feels way too intimate. One netizen says, it just looks so wrong and inappropriate. It's her attorney, and I don't know, it just doesn't feel like a normal attorney-client type of situation. The picture is a lot. Some try to argue, well, it's because they've been working very closely every single day with each other for years, fighting for freedom. Geez, can't a girl have hobbies? Like, can't a girl live a little? Others say they've become a close friends and a support system. I'm sure that his wife is totally fine with stuff like this. I mean, what's the big deal about this picture? It's not like they got caught making out or anything. Why are people so crazy? Others say, I just feel a little uncomfortable because he's married. But the people who don't like Karen Read have used this photo as another example of why she's guilty of murder. How can she be so heartless and cruel? Karen, how exactly are you paying your attorneys? You will have your day. I'm totally disgusted. Another one reads, this is blowing it for me, for Karen Read. This man is full of himself and he's all over her and she's loving it. He's married, but not for too long. They're definitely sleeping together. One source apparently close to Karen Read tells TMZ that the picture has been taken way out of context. The two are just sharing an innocent moment of celebration. There's nothing on this picture, really. They're just, quote, goofing around. But Karen Read supporters have stated, isn't it a little weird that the source only spoke with TMZ, a longtime non-supporter of Karen Read? The connection to Karen Read, the source has never been named, disclosed, further expanded upon. It's also weird that out of the major news media networks, the only ones that are really running with this video, this picture, are the ones that have not been favorable to Karen Read since the very beginning. So what if the picture's not even real? What if it's AI? What if it's edited? Lars Daniel, a digital forensic expert, author of Digital Forensics for Legal Professionals, states, I certainly do not believe this to be real. He says it's weird that there's elements in the photo. So near the back of the photo, you see this parking sign. High resolution. You can read it. The Audi, the car in the back, high resolution, clear as day. So why does Alan Jackson look like a blob? His hair has clear indications that edits have been made. Additionally, his arm is kind of warped. It gets bigger and smaller and bigger and smaller in just ways that just don't align with human anatomy. Netizens have also noticed that there appears to be two Alan Jacksons in the photo. One of them is facing Karen Read, taking a photo with David Yannetti. Some argue it's not him and it's a different friend, but it does look like Alan Jackson. And then another one who's hugging Karen Read from the back. So which one is Alan Jackson?
That is crazy. So you're saying AI?
It seems to be edited by most people's professional and non-professional accounts. In any event, I do think that the video is questionable in its credibility. I mean, I could always be proven wrong, but just at first glance, it looks like at least a little bit tampered with. But overall, the whole thing feels oddly suspicious because the implications of if this photo is real versus if it's fake are drastically different. So for one, if the photo is real, you might have a questionable picture of an attorney and their client and perhaps a dilemma of professional boundaries and moral, ethical questions being bounced around. Two, if the photo is not real, if it's edited and certain mainstream media outlets are pushing this photo out there, who would edit something like this? Why would they even take this picture and run these stories? How far are these people willing to go to make sure Karen Read ends up in jail? Are they the same people that wanted to make sure nobody found out about Sandra Birchmore? Another high-profile murder case in Massachusetts. We've actually talked about the Sandra Birchmore case before on this podcast. The death of Sandra Birchmore, she was 23 years old. Originally, she self-exited in her Canton, Massachusetts apartment, almost exactly a year before John O'Keefe died. Or at least that's what the Canton PD, the Massachusetts State PD, kept saying. She self-exited. But once the FBI got involved, it was uncovered that not only did she not self-exit, but she was likely killed by a police officer who had been grooming, exploiting, and abusing her since she was 15 years old. A police officer that has connections with some of the Canton police officers.
Wait, it was the same police department?
It's a neighboring police department. So her alleged killer works for Stoughton PD, which is a neighboring police department. But because her apartment is in Canton, they were the responding police officers. In fact, one of these officers that we're familiar with was at the scene when her body was found. And then the Massachusetts State Police take over, the True Patrols take over. You're going to see a lot of people that you're familiar with that pronounce her dead. They investigate her connections with another police officer, and they all say, you know what? She self-exited. And all of this is taking place in the same DA's office, Norfolk County DA. But what's even more intriguing about all of this is, why did Karen Read's defense team request unredacted files from Sandra Birchmore's case? What are the connections here? Is it possible for Rotten Mango to support the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston, Massachusetts? They're a globally known cancer research center that also provides support for patients and families, similar to John O'Keefe's sister, who has since passed away from brain cancer. This episode's partnerships have also made it possible to support Rotten Mango's growing team, and would also like to thank you guys for your continued support. As always, full show notes are available at rottenmangopodcast.com. There are references to driving under the influence, alleged physical assault. Please watch at your own discretion, as well as mentions of self-exit, crimes against people who are currently pregnant. This episode is pretty dark. It is the final part of the Karen Read series. And there's just, honestly, I feel like I could make a 20-part series for Karen Read. It's just so extensive. Everything we've talked about, we can go 5 layers deeper into all of the nitty-gritty details. But because I think the main focus that people have been trying to center the conversation on is the connections to all of the corruption in Massachusetts and probably everywhere in the United States. This episode is also going to include the story of Sandra Birchmore, which we have already covered on this podcast, but there have been lots of new developments since then. So if you want to watch that episode, I'll link it below, but there's a lot of updates and I'm going to go through them today. And you don't really need that, but you do need the first 3 parts of the Karen Read series. There's no way that I can recap almost 10 hours of video footage for you. Just know that January 29th, 2022, John O'Keefe, Boston police officer, was found deceased in the snow on the front lawn of another Boston police officer's home, Brian Albert. Brian Albert has a lot of connections. This doesn't take place in the jurisdiction of Boston Police Department. It takes place in the jurisdiction of the Canton Police Department. They are the first ones to investigate. Everybody is connected to everybody. And somehow it seems like the least likely murderer in this situation. The evidence doesn't really point to her. There's a few things that are weird, like her angry voicemails, but those are all kind of explained by just sheer logic. The one that every single person in a position of authority and power in law enforcement in that town has pointed this case as the culprit is Karen Read, John O'Keefe's girlfriend of 2 years. And Karen Read has gone through 2 different trials to try and prove her innocence. And so this is kind of the summary and culmination of both trials. We have condensed and combined statements, trial testimonies for brevity's sake, because there's just no way. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of hours of trial footage that we went through. So with that being said, that is the recap. Go watch part 1, 2, and 3. And this is the final part of Karen Read. Michael Morrissey is the DA for the Norfolk County, and he sits in front of a wall of books, and it makes him look scholarly, it makes him look well-read, but he just starts yapping away in a YouTube video. Suddenly, everyone in the comments is rolling their eyes at Mr. Michael Morrissey. He says, "This will be my first statement of its kind. False narratives are not evidence. What the evidence does not show is that John O'Keefe never entered the home at 34 Fairview Road in Canton the night that he died. 11 people have given statements that they did not see John O'Keefe enter the home at 34 Fairview that night. 0 people have said that they saw him enter the home. 0. No one. Some have, without evidence, pointed to 18-year-old Colin Albert, a nephew of the homeowner, and accused him of attacking John O'Keefe as he entered the home, but phone evidence shows John O'Keefe never entered the home at all. There was no fight outside. There's no fight inside the house. John O'Keefe did not enter the home."
Colin Albert, the young man being vilified,
knocked out, KO, bang, bang,
was not present when Reed's vehicle and John O'Keefe arrived on the street.
This is a false narrative.
When was he saying this?
This is like before trial too.
Okay.
And people are confused because why does this man sound like an attorney for Colin Albert and not a DA? Because aren't DAs supposed to be trying the case before the jury and not telling the jury what to think about this case? But he continues, Colin Albert did not commit murder. How would you know that? There was no investigation into that.
Were you there?
Yeah, were you there that night? Check his phone records. I'm just kidding. He seems crazy. Jennifer McCabe, Matthew McCabe, and
Vistaprint prints everything to get your brand in front of your fans, like t-shirts, water bottles, and totes. So everyone can gift it, work in it, and take it. Whether it's one of a kind or one for your whole team, if you need it, we print it with 10% off select clothing at Vistaprint.ca.
Brian Albert. These people were not part of a conspiracy and certainly did not commit murder or any crime that night. Well, I feel like a lot of them were drunk driving, so that's at least a crime. So you're already lying. They have been forthcoming with authority, providing statements that have not engaged in any cover-ups. They are not suspects in any crime. They're merely witnesses in this case. To have them accused of murder is outrageous. To have them harassed and intimidated based on false narratives and accusations is wrong. The autopsy of John O'Keefe was conducted by a forensic pathologist. The doctor found the injuries that left John helpless in the cold were not a result of a fight. That is an entirely false narrative. She stated specifically that she could not rule out a fight. It could have been from a fight. It could have been from being hit by a car. It could have been lots of things, which is why the manner of John's death is listed as undetermined. But he continues, "We try people on the court and not the internet for a reason. The internet has no rules of evidence. The internet has no punishment for perjury," which is also another lie. You can get hit with defamation lawsuits. But he continues, "The internet does not know all the facts. Conspiracy theories are not evidence."
Michael Proctor,
no nude so far.
the state police trooper being accused of planting evidence outside 34 Fairview Road, was never at Fairview Road on the day of the incident.
In addition to having no opportunity to plant the evidence, as has been suggested, Proctor would have no motive to do so. He had no personal relationship with any of the parties involved in the investigation, had no conflict, he had no reason to step out of his investigation. Every suggestion to the contrary is a lie. But the one part that sticks out most is when Michael Morrissey says this: "The idea that multiple police departments, EMTs, fire personnel, and medical examiner, and the prosecuting agencies join in or taken in by a vast conspiracy should be seen for what it is, completely contrary to the evidence and a desperate attempt to reassign guilt." His whole explanation is that it just takes too many people to be involved in a conspiracy or a conspiracy cover-up to this extent, to this level. If that's the case, that means nothing similar should have ever happened ever before in maybe history, but definitely not in his department, right? Because it's just logically impossible, logistically impossible, theoretically impossible. It is impossible, correct?
Mm-hmm.
February 4th of 2021, almost exactly a year before John O'Keefe is found dead. This is the date of another blizzard in Canton, Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah.
Canton police get a phone call from a local elementary school, and one of the teachers failed to show up to work, and nobody's been able to get in contact with her. Some people might think this is no big deal, But this is very unlike her to do this. Her name is Sandra Birchmore, and the Canton police are dispatched to do a wellness check. They get to her apartment. Nobody's answering the door. They're about to leave when they realize that her vehicle, which is registered to her, it's in the parking lot covered in snow. Snow started falling 3 days ago, which means she's been in her apartment for the past 3 days. That would make the most sense, right? I mean, she's not going anywhere without her snow. Canton is not really a walkable town. So if that's the case, why is she not opening the door? Is she having some sort of medical emergency? Canton police, they ask the property manager for a set of keys to open up the apartment. They walk in and they see Sandra Birchmore in her bedroom on the floor with a lanyard around her neck, deceased. She's like sitting on her bedroom floor. This is very important later. Her phone is near her body, likely within reach, and the Canton police that show up, they come to the least likely, least investigative, least common sense conclusion that Sandra Birchmore has self-exited by way of a duffel bag string around her neck, and she had used her closet door handle whilst sitting down to self-exit by way of asphyxiation. Even though most evidence does not point to her having any sort of inclination to self-exit. And I know a lot of people are going to say that a lot of the times it is random, it is abrupt, there are not that many signs to be able to predict, but she's pregnant. She's planning a newborn photo session. She literally just emailed a photographer. She's making arrangements with a friend to take care of her 2 cats while she goes into labor. She's doing laundry. She was about to put her laundry from the washer to the dryer, and she was waiting for the father of her child to show up to her place. The father of her child is Staunton Police Detective Matthew Farwell. So this is a nearby police department. This is not Canton. And Massachusetts State Police is the whole state. So it's like a within. So Canton is within Massachusetts. Staunton is within Massachusetts. It's nearby. Matthew Farwell is clearly not happy that Sandra Birchmore is pregnant with his child. I mean, for one, he's married, and his wife is currently also pregnant with their 3rd child. He didn't like that Sandra was going around telling everyone that she was pregnant with his child. He didn't want to pay for child support, and he definitely didn't want to get investigated because Sandra Birchmore isn't just a woman that he's having an affair with. Sandra Birchmore is someone that he has known since she was a little girl. She was part of a police mentoring program called Police Explorers, where it's alleged that multiple police officers, including Matthew Farwell, his twin brother, and their superior officer, Robert Devine, had groomed her and assaulted her since she was at least 15 years old. She went into the program because it's supposed to help local youth, and she came from just a rough background is how everybody describes it. But instead of being taken care of, Sandra Birchmore was 16 years old when Matthew Farwell essayed her for the first time. He was 26. No, she was 15. He was 26 and she was 15. He's also getting paid by the police force while assaulting a minor on the clock, getting paid for it. Near Christmas of 2020, Sandra is of age now. She's 23 at this point. She tells him that she's pregnant with his child. He's clearly not happy about any of this. He texts her and he just says that he wishes that she would die. February 1st of 2021, Matthew decides he's having a change of heart. He does indeed want to stop by Sandra Birchmore's place in the midst of a blizzard while his wife is in the hospital about to go into labor with their first child. He drives to Sandra Birchmore's home. He's seen on the apartment CCTV cameras wearing a mask, a COVID mask. His hood is covering his entire head. 20 minutes later, he's seen leaving the apartment, going straight to the hospital where his wife is giving birth. There's actually a very terrifying photo of him where he's cradling his newborn baby in the hospital, wearing the same exact outfit that he had gone to Sandra Birchmore's apartment in, allegedly killing her. All very suspicious elements to, I don't know, a very straightforward crime. I don't think anyone would need a police badge to put 2 and 2 together and come to the very easy destination that Matthew Farwell should at the very least be investigated. But that is not what happens. Instead, Sandra Birchmore's death is quickly deemed a self-exit. Even though Matthew Farwell has strong motives, he was the last one to see her alive. Multiple tips after Sandra's death, multiple tips are called into the Norfolk DA's office, the same one handling Karen Reed's case. Friends of Sandra's are calling in saying they knew Sandra was pregnant. with a police officer's child, Matthew Farwell, and when he found out, he was not happy. In fact, he seemed kind of violent. He was pushing her, shoving her, grabbing objects from her. This is what Sandra had told them before she died, putting Sandra in a chokehold. This is weeks leading up to her murder. Also, just 12 days before her death, Sandra told her friends that Matthew Farwell came over and was suspiciously looking at her apartment, going through her bathroom, her closets, almost like he was scoping it out. Those are the words she used.
Wow.
And 12 days later, she mysteriously dies in a strange manner that authorities deem a self-exit, even though Sandra was really excited to become a mom. Nothing happens for 4 full years until the FBI steps in and finally arrests Matthew Farwell for Sandra Birchmore's death, accusing him of essentially framing Sandra Birchmore in her own murder. Another thing to note is, yes, after Sandra's death, many of her friends called in tips to the Norfolk County DA's office. And even when the red alarms did not go off, I mean, it should have, but even prior to her passing, people were calling into Staunton PD to report Matthew Farwell. Sandra Birchmore had told a few of her friends that she was pregnant with Matthew Farwell's child, and he had actually started essaying her since she was 16. She did not believe it to be essay because she had been so groomed, but they had noticed it was essay. So they call Staunton and they're like, one of your officers was abusing the police program, the Explorers program, to essay a minor at the time. This is even before she passes away. And just like Karen Reed's case, a lot of different agencies were involved with this whole investigation before it goes to the FBI. Matthew Farwell is part of Staunton PD. But Staunton PD has no jurisdiction because Sandra Birchmore is found deceased in Canton. So Canton PD are the first ones to arrive at the scene. It's later handed off to the Massachusetts State Police.
Why is that?
They handle most of the unattended deaths. Canton PD is just too small of a police department to handle a lot of the homicides. So I think they hand off a lot of their bigger cases. The Massachusetts State Troopers are the ones that deemed Sandra Birchmore's death as self-exit, but also the Canton PD. They both deem it a self-exit. Canton PD, the Massachusetts State Department, and even the DA's office is like, yeah, it's definitely a self-exit. In fact, you're gonna see a lot of the same people that are involved. So the first connection between these two cases comes from Michael Lank. Michael Lank of the Canton Police Department, good old friends with Chris Albert. Michael Lank has known the Alberts for probably longer than we've been alive. This guy has known Chris Albert since he was 12 years old, and they have been friends. I mean, Lank says if he's got to list it, he's probably known Tim Albert since he was, 16? He's known Chris since he was 12. I mean,
Tim Albert is the brother, another brother of Albert's,
yes,
right?
so Brian, Tim, Chris, Kevin Albert, they're all brothers. They have a few more siblings. There's like 7 siblings in the bunch, but these are the 4 important ones.
And 3 of them are cops. Oh no, 2 of them are cops. One of them is
a Canton Select man.
in charge of the...
Yes.
Okay.
I have no idea what this man does.
Tim Albert.
Yeah. He'd just be posting weird stuff. He's like the type to post the alpha man lion. Michael Lank has worked with Kevin Albert, another Canton detective, for at least 18 years. He's known Kevin since he was 14 years old. He does admit that he considers Kevin Albert more of a friend and less of a coworker. The most alarming connection in this friendship with Chris Albert is that Chris is shady. He sells mediocre pizza, that's also shady. But in 2002, Officer Lank is sitting outside of a bar. He's off duty drinking when Chris Albert runs up to him and says, hey, you gotta save my life. My life is in danger. This is from the perspective of Michael Lank.
But actually, it looks like an evidence bag. It just doesn't say Canton Police on it. It says Stop and Shop, but it does look like an evidence bag. It's the same thing.
Do we trust anything, Michael Link says? Probably not, so take it with a grain of salt. He's saying that they're threatening the entire Albert lineage. He says, I got out of my car. I approached these group of men and I pleaded with them to not fight tonight. I said, there's not going to be a fight tonight. There's 6 of you guys. Chris Albert is here with his girlfriend, probably Julie Albert at the time. There's not going to be a fight tonight. Michael Link says, I observed multiple men walking down the sidewalk in that direction. And at that point, I got out of my truck, approached the group and pleaded with them. I said, guys, not tonight. He's with his girlfriend. That's not going to be the fight tonight. He says, I tried my best to defuse the situation. But they get into a fist fight in the middle of the night. These 2 brothers, Michael Link says, they end up throwing a few punches first. Michael Link starts wrestling them down to the ground. He taps himself in as an off-duty police officer. He says, okay, now I'm on duty. And he starts fighting them. He's punching them. He's on top of them. Other Canton police officers have to drag him off of the 2 brothers. And he says, I defended myself and engaged in a physical altercation with the brothers.
Wait. Hold on. 6 people. He ran into 6 people.
Yes, but it seems like it's only the 2 brothers.
Who's at the scene? Chris Albert, a girlfriend, and 4 other people?
Yes, but it's like a group of people, but he really only starts fighting 2 guys.
Of the 6 people?
Yeah.
Are they trying to fight Chris or trying to fight Michael?
Allegedly, they're trying to fight Chris. I don't really believe it, because Chris is known to start shit.
Right, and Michael saying, that's my friend, please don't start trouble now.
Yes.
And they start trying to start trouble, so Michael start fighting 2 brothers.
Yes, and
Is Chris fighting too?
No, and here's why I don't believe that Chris is innocent in any of this, and that's just a personal belief. He seems like the type to start. At one point, Alan Jackson was in he's in Canton, he's in Boston because of this trial. He walks into a bar. Chris Albert happens to be there. Chris Albert calls for a buff friend to show up, and that friend starts yelling at Alan Jackson to get the f out of Canton and go back to LA, go back to Los Angeles, big shot attorney, in a very threatening manner. And so this guy is still doing that to this day. I feel like in 2002, this is the one that started everything. He gets Michael Link involved. Michael Link starts pummeling these guys. He's asked later by Karen's attorney,
did you come to Chris Albert's aid as best you could as a longtime friend of his?
I came to the aid of a citizen who was in fear and of need.
That citizen happened to be Chris Albert, whom you had known since you were 12 years old.
Correct.
Ultimately, a fight breaks up. Link is called for backup. They separate them. Nothing happens that night. Nobody is arrested. And that's interesting because if he is saying that these 2 brothers started the fight, they would have arrested the brothers.
Yeah.
You don't just attack a cop and get away with it. That never happens ever. Well, interestingly enough, nobody is arrested. Everyone is told to go home. Nobody files a police report about this incident until the next day. The 2 brothers come into Canton Police Department and they complain and they say, I was just randomly attacked by one of your officers who was off duty last night. And then the 2 brothers get arrested. Lank is confronted by this by Karen's attorney, who asks him, Officer Lank, is this an example of you using your position as a police officer to come to the aid of one of the members of the Albert family?
It was me coming to the aid of a citizen who was terrified and scared for him and his family on that night.
Who happened
to be Chris Albert.
You indicated that either they made a threatening comment to you or a disparaging comment to you about I don't give a fuck, correct? Correct. Isn't it true that what was actually said was you said to them, I don't know who you are, but I'm going to make your life miserable? No. Michael Lank, connected with the Alberts, connected with Karen Reed. He is one of the first to show up at Sandra Birchmore's apartment when there's a wellness check called. He is one of the few officers that finds her deceased body and starts the investigation into Sandra Birchmore's death. Now, speaking of the Albert family, Kevin Albert was additionally one of the few at the scene of Sandra Birchmore's investigation, but he was at the scene much later, so he did not discover Sandra Birchmore's body. He was actually not a big key role in the investigation, but he did go to the apartment complex to gather CCTV data.
Which they see clearly that another officer was at the scene.
Yes. Daniel Whitley is a paramedic. He is also another connection. He's one of the first paramedics on the scene for Sandra Birchmore. He's also the paramedic that drove Karen Reed to the hospital after she was Section 12'd. He's also Carrie Roberts' neighbor. When Carrie Robert hosts a neighborhood block party, he brings the fire truck because he's a firefighter paramedic. He brings the fire truck to the block party. Now, what's interesting is in part of his testimony for the Karen Read case, a lot of netizens think this guy just does not like Karen Read. People don't understand why all of these law enforcement officers have so much hatred and vitriol for Karen Read without even really understanding. First of all, if you're a law enforcement officer and you look at this case, because a lot of people have pointed out, why is it that all police officers from across the nation have not come in support of John O'Keefe and this trial? Because if you are talking about a police officer that has been murdered by their girlfriend, every single cop in the entire nation is going to be posting about it on Facebook. When a cop goes down, the blue wall stands strong. Every other cop is posting about it. It doesn't matter if you've never met that cop. You're posting about it on Facebook.
And you're saying the cops are not across the...
Not a lot. I mean, you have the Boston Police Force. They showed support briefly initially when John O'Keefe was first deceased. And then you had a few local officers. You have the Canton Police that have rallied around, but definitely nothing like what you would imagine, especially a case this high profile. I would understand if maybe it's not a high profile case and these cops just haven't heard of it, but I would think everyone from the NYPD all the way to the LAPD would be posting about it. Why is it that they're not? Is it because they're looking at it and going, oh, this is a weird investigation? But it seems like every single person that goes on the stand doesn't feel that way. In fact, it seems just like they hate Karen Read. It's like they have a predisposed condition to hate her. When Daniel Whitley is talking about what he witnessed in the ambulance, he does admit that Karen Read was a wreck, which is pretty on par with what you would imagine someone going through a traumatic incident. However, he says, quote, she was crying about having to take care of kids, saying she couldn't do it.
I was saying, you can do this. It's not as hard as it seems.
Which again, doesn't really seem that motivating, but he continues.
She kept saying, I can't take care of these kids. I can't take care of these kids. They're not my kids, and they're not his kids. So I said, listen, it's okay. It looks like you have a very strong support system. And she had been crying. And she picked her head up and said, do you know Carrie Roberts? And I said, a matter of fact, I do. And she said, anybody who knows Carrie Roberts wouldn't say that about her. And I said, well, she did come to out at early in the morning to look for your husband in a blizzard. And she just rolled her eyes and put her head back down. And I thought it was just bizarre.
Domestic investors are experiencing...
Looking for clarity on where to invest? Then it's time to partner with Sun Life. As Canada's largest asset manager, we combine insurance and investment expertise to create your personalized plan.
There is a lot more to my job than most people think. It's a career like no other. Although we go through extremely tough situations, we still have time to relax and have fun. We have a vibrant downtown, yet we still have a small city feel, where you are connected to the whole department and community. I have been involved in some amazing assignments, working with community nonprofit partners and local businesses. I have also been involved with the Gang Suppression Unit and Integrated Regional Units. I continually grow as a person and build my skills as an officer. There is never a dull moment at my job, and it's always an adventure.
Wait, can we break that down for a second?
Yes.
I feel like that was packed. What does that mean?
He's saying, you've got a strong support system. You've got this. And okay, Karen Read, she unprompted does say, do you know Carrie Roberts? He's like, yeah, I do. She says, well, if you know Carrie Roberts, you wouldn't say that. However, I feel like I'm on Karen Read's side with this one.
So is Karen Read saying that Carrie Robert is not a great support system?
No, and I agree because she's telling her to shut the f up the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, what is so wrong about that?
I don't understand.
Right?
And he's saying in the moment when you're crying about your deceased husband, it doesn't make sense. However, I feel like there have been times where, I mean, I don't know the level of distraught or grief that any type of situation like this has never occurred in my life, thankfully. But I feel like I do make dark comments like that.
Yeah,
it's
are
just
you
very
kidding
realistic.
me? Like, this is life. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You're not here trying to get motivational right now. This is life.
Especially in the moment when you are in this dark of a place and someone says, well, chin up, buttercup, you're not gonna go, okay, thanks. Like, that's very small talk. I feel like you're in a state where you're very realistic. You're like, absolutely not. I have no support system. I can't do this. I can't do anything in life. What are you talking about? Do you even know who you're talking about? That's the vibe Karen Reed gives me, but he's on the stand like, it's just weird. It's just weird. He testifies, the only tone I can use to describe it is snarky. It just seems that he does not like Karen Reed, and he is one of the very first paramedics at the scene for Sandra Birchmore. Trooper Nicholas Garino was a Commonwealth witness for both the first and second trial. He is a digital forensic specialist. That's what he calls himself. He says he went through all of John O'Keefe's data extracted from his phone. The main takeaways from his testimonies include the fact that I think he doesn't know what he's talking about. I think he's shady.
Why?
For one, he states that the house long to die in the cold search for Jennifer McCabe, he didn't find that on Jennifer McCabe's phone on Cellbrite, which doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because all the other Cellbrite experts, they're like, you pull the data from Cellbrite just because she deleted her Google search. You're talking about Cellbrite. Most law enforcement agencies use Cellbrite. If you can Google something, delete it, and then it doesn't show up, why would law enforcement agencies use Cellbrite? His excuse to that is, well, I was using an unupdated version of Cellbrite when I extracted her data. And everyone's like, that doesn't make sense. He also claims that he didn't find the numerous phone calls that Jen McCabe made to John O'Keefe that night and then later deleted. Remember how Jen McCabe is like, yeah, I was waiting for him outside, or looking out the window, waiting for him to come in. I was texting him a few times. Well, after that, she makes numerous phone calls to John O'Keefe, and all of them go unanswered, and then she deletes them. Why would she delete them? Because it doesn't make sense. If they did drive away and she was like, oh, I thought they got into a fight, so I let it go. Why would she call? The netizen theory is that they had allegedly something to do with his demise and they couldn't find his phone. So she was calling it to hear it ring so that they could find his phone.
Wow.
He didn't find any of those either. I don't know what he's looking for because he's not finding anything. He also claims that you can sometimes trick your phone that you walked up and down stairs because remember, John O'Keefe's phone indicated that he took multiple steps, like about 80 steps, which would have led them straight to the front door, side door of 34 Fairview, and then went up and down 3 flights of stairs. He says, well, you can kind of trick your phone to do that, which a lot of people, including anonymous Apple employees, take it with a grain of salt online, have later disputed, but likely due to strict company policies, they can't really tell you outright, but they express disbelief in the comments that he's making. He's like, yeah, I mean, a lot of these Apple employees are saying maybe in 2012, but you're talking 2022? No. You're not going to trick your phone of going up and down the stairs by driving up a hill.
So best case scenario is he is a complete, useless, incompetent quote-unquote expert.
Yes. Okay, so that's the complicated thing about Karen Reed's case. Everyone uses the straw man theory, where they just compile every single thing and bubble it to... You know when people argue online and you're like, can you have a little more nuance?
Yeah.
That's kind of the thing with this. The argument is not every single person can be that corrupt. It doesn't make sense. It's not corrupt. Some people are just incompetent, and it's just together.
Yeah.
It's a mixture of corruption and incompetence, and then it's combined and it creates this.
Yeah.
It's not that every single person is in on a so-called cover-up. It just seems like some people have no idea what they're doing, and you can't really tell which one. This is one of the guys. You can't really tell which one it is. I mean, there's a few. This guy, Trooper Paul, you're going to be like, I don't think he's part of a conspiracy. I think there's no thoughts behind this man's eyes. But this one, it's hard to say. With Garino, it's hard to say. And the timing of the fact that he didn't find the house long to die in the cold search is interesting, considering if they had that information for the first grand jury, if they were privy to these details, they probably would have been less likely to indict Karen Reed. All those deleted calls from Jen McCabe, the house long to die in the cold, I don't know if a grand jury would have indicted Karen Reed.
Right.
It just makes Trooper Garino look like a very shaky witness in the Karen Reed case. Side note, I will say that Trooper Garino has gone viral because whether intentional or not, there is a break. He was the one that had to read all of John O'Keefe and Karen Reed's messages out loud in court.
Okay.
And at one point, there's a break during the reading of the text messages between John and Karen. He sighs, he leans back, but the mic is clearly still on. And he whispers, "Kill me," to himself. which has since gone viral, with most people feeling a twinge of sympathy towards him, except for the fact that, can you even trust a single thing that this guy says when he has also worked on the Sandra Birchmore case? After Sandra Birchmore's death, Canton PD had the state police come in to investigate. Trooper Garino is a trooper, he's a trooper troll. Trooper Garino, being on the team, he states that he did not find a single message between Matthew Farwell's phone to Sandra Birchmore. Matthew Farwell turned in his phone.
That is so shady.
He's
Come
like,
on.
I didn't find a single message, which would make you think, okay, Farwell is not as involved as the internet likes to think that he is then, correct? Incorrect. The second the feds take a look at this case, they uncover 32,709 messages between the two between December 2019 to February 2021. That's just what, like 2 years.
What's like the status of Sandra Birchmore now? Is it
He's in jail and it's pending trial.
because of the feds, right?
Yes, he has pled not guilty. So you're just telling me, Trooper Garino, that you don't even just miss one or two, you miss 32,709 text messages. Some of those text messages include the two of them talking about the first time Farwell R-worded Sandra Birchmore. That is when Sandra would have been 15 years old. He R-worded her. That is her very first experience, and she happened to be a victim of a crime. She texted him, I had butterflies so bad the day you took my car, like, you know. Me too, it was such a big day. I still know the day to this day. So she's saying, I still remember the date to this day. And this is how deep the grooming has gone. He says, really? Yes, that's not a date I'll ever forget. April 10th, 2013. Again, very clear evidence that he essayed her when she was 15. You don't need a calculator to do the math. Sandra writes, best day of my life, heart emoji. Me too. Then later, Matthew Farwell texts her, if I pushed, I absolutely could have effed you without condoms from day one. Sandra Birchmore responds, probably if you really pushed it. I was kind of scared to say no in the beginning, not knowing how you would take it. So yeah, you probably could have gotten using no protection, LOL. More alarmingly, this police officer who has already committed these crimes when Sandra is of age, now that she's an adult, he asks her to engage in acting during intimate relations. He says that he wants her to have intimate relations with him while pinning her down and fake R-wording her. He wants Sandra to say, quote, will you say, Matt, stop, I'm 13, I'm not ready for this, oh my God, please stop.
This is insane.
He also texts her numerous times to pretend that he is an older brother coming into her room at night to have intimate relations with her that she does not want to consent to. Even that's not enough for this sick walking disease that likes to call himself a police officer, likes to call himself a man or a human. He texts her a whole lengthy conversation about how he wishes she would have told him sooner that she was interested in him, because he would have totally essayed her a year prior when she was 13, 14 years old. Even after all of that, when Sandra is of age, he will ask her to meet up in Costco parking lots, Five Guys parking lots to have intimate relations while he's on the clock for Stoughton PD. He also texts her, quote, I'm gonna sneak away from work real quick. Quote, yes, I will be on the clock. If this is not already a steaming pile of motivations for Matthew Farwell to kill Sandra Birchmore, that just goes over the troopers' heads. There's also these messages. Sandra Birchmore texts Matthew Farwell a poster board that she made that reads, congrats, we're going to be parents. To which Matthew Farwell responds, I literally have nothing to say right now. How could you express that in text when I said I don't appreciate it? He responds, how far are you? Regardless of how far, we're keeping it. Okay, we will need to talk then. No, that's obvious. I'm mad at how you're acting over a choice we both made. I'm mad you act like you gave anyone a choice. Oh, so you didn't have a choice?
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform made for anyone with an idea and a drive to bring it to life. Describe what you want and watch it take shape. You can plan, customize, and expand in any direction. From tools built for one to platforms ready for many. From passion projects to enterprise-grade systems. Everything is built in and ready to launch. It's a new world of creation, where you can go as far as your imagination takes you. Can you imagine it? Let's make your dream a reality right now.
Per usual. usual, you make and do whatever you want. This is coming from the R-worder that R-worded her when she was 15. He says, you are truly the worst person on the face of the earth. According to the feds, Sandra's diaries also indicate, as well as text messages, indicate that Matthew Farwell would punish Sandra Birchmore ever since she was a kid for things like getting bad grades, for failing to share her cell phone location data. He would punish her with really rough essay when she was young. He also details his ideal situation, which would be her pretending to be 13 or 14 years old. And he says, quote, you can say no and make me take it, full R word. After an in-person meeting, Sandra texts Matthew Farwell, it made me really uncomfortable and stressed out and scared when you were next to me because I thought you were going to hit me after you said what you said and took things out of my hand. That's why I was crying. I know you wouldn't, but it still scared me. Which makes sense because this guy is very scary. A federal search warrant of his devices also found that he liked lots of memes involving necrophilia. Again, a detective. He liked one that reads, what does a pulse and a destination of intimate relations have in common? I don't care if she has either. He doesn't care if a woman reaches a destination.
Or dead. Or
if she has a pulse. Another one he likes says, when she says, choke me daddy, and you get carried away and now she's dead. Another one that reads, if you f*** a corpse on a waterbed, it feels like they're participating. A report from the feds reads that he also liked a meme that reads, quote, glorifying a person who kills and essays someone no one will miss. Another one shows a woman with a piece of duct tape over her mouth. And again, this is a police detective. A woman with a piece of duct tape over her mouth, and it reads, duct tape turning no, no, no into since 1942. A police detective. A month before Sandra Birchmore is found dead, she's texting Matthew Farwell trying to compromise, knowing that he has a family, which, side note, he R-worded her for the first time a month before he got married to his wife, the mother of his 3 children. She was 15. Sandra texts him, you don't have to sign the birth certificate if they can have your name, and I won't move to Staunton. I won't bitch about holidays, but I would like you to come a few days before Christmas and Easter so you can see what they get from me, and I don't want you to leave them out. And 3, if you want to try and support them, we can talk about that, but I do want you to see them. I feel like I'm trying to be as fair as I can, and I want you to be there for the labor. I'm standing my ground on that one for sure. Okay, we can discuss this more in person. It's a lot to think about. It's so much more than you have ever asked for. Sandra Birchmore sadly responds, and still less than what any other girl would ask for. Just 2 weeks before Sandra's death, adding more motivation into the mix if you can even fathom that, one of Sandra's friends calls him into the Staunton Police Department to report Matthew Farwell for essaying her as a teenager. He texts her, dude, your fucking friend called my job, Sandra, what the fuck?
Wait, another friend said that Matthew essayed the friend?
No, Sandra.
Sandra.
So Sandra had told, and I think the friend is like, okay, Sandra, you don't see how alarming this is. This is not normal. He can't be a police officer. Call Staunton PD. And he's texting her upset. And Sandra just texts question mark. He says, you told me that no one knew about us, yet she claimed we were fucking. Like, you have no idea how bad what she did is. I literally can't believe this is even real life. Like, what else do I have to worry about now? Which other friend will do something tomorrow? And just a few days before her murder, there are text messages proving that Sandra went to Walmart to get a copy of her apartment keys, as is requested by Matthew Farwell. Text messages to Sandra's friends from Sandra indicating that Matthew Farwell came over to scope the bathroom. All of these are messages that are seemingly missed by Trooper Garino initially.
How does Garino still have a job after that?
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
I mean, to say the least. The guy should be locked up too for...
In our opinion. As they say, though, you cannot be fired from the police force for incompetence. You have to be fired for, like, brute, over-the-top corruption, which is hard to prove because you can always argue corruption is just incompetence. All of these messages are seemingly missed. Trooper Garino's explanation for that is that Matthew Farwell already told him that the messages between him and Sandra Birchmore were deleted from his phone, so he didn't really take it as a big red flag. He just kind of goes with it. Which even then, a digital forensic specialist should know that that doesn't mean deleted, right? Deleted does not mean deleted when you're a law enforcement officer. Additionally, he pulled extractions from Sandra Birchmore's computer, which shows thousands of communications between them. It also includes Matthew Farwell Googling and deleting, quote, can deleted iMessage be recovered by Cellbrite? Which sounds very similar to How Long to Die in the Cold. And then another one, quote, can you revoke consent in Massachusetts? both of which he has deleted. But the jurors for Karen Reed's case don't know any of this when Trooper Garino is testifying. Just like they don't know about the FBI investigation into the investigation of John O'Keefe's death because Auntie Bev has ruled against it. There will be no mention of it. She states testimony about unrelated death investigation, Sandra Birchmeier, would result in a trial within a trial with much information being inadmissible, confidential, or offered without a proper foundation. Elizabeth Little argues that the parallels in these cases couldn't be clearer. Both cases involve a failure to investigate a law enforcement officer who should have been a suspect. The reports by investigating officers that led to the improper clearing of Farwell go directly towards the credibility of these officers. But alas, regarding any information regarding Sandra Birchmeier is not allowed into Karen Reed's trial. One criminal justice journalist states, understatement of the century, but Massachusetts has a serious problem with murder investigations involving police suspects, witnesses, and leads. So they can't bring it up. So the second trial, the defense, they just completely forego a cross-examination for Trooper Garino. They don't even touch it, but the internet goes crazy.
They don't even touch it.
They go, we have no questions. Sergeant John Fanning. Before this case, Sandra Birchmeier's case, gets taken over by the feds, it goes from Staunton PD to Canton PD. Well, Staunton really didn't do anything. Canton PD to MSP, and they decide that maybe we are going to investigate Matthew Farwell, the state police. They're like, okay, let's look into him.
Who is John Fanning?
John Fanning is lieutenant of the Massachusetts State Police. He's going to be connected, just you wait.
Okay.
He's going to be leading the investigation into Sandra Birchmeier's death. He's like, Garino, pull the text messages. He's like, I couldn't find any. And so he's like, okay, let me investigate what's going on. Now, what do? Do they investigate Farwell for potential murder? No, they investigate him for larceny. In other words, they're going to investigate him for stealing taxpayer money, as there is proof that he was essaying Sandra while he was, quote, on patrol. They're not investigating him for essaying Sandra. They're investigating him for having intimate relations with her when she is of age while getting paid at work.
Why is that easier on the charges?
I guess it's better than not investigating Matthew Farwell at all. And this is a pretty slap on the wrist charge, hopefully.
Doesn't look as bad.
Yeah. Even when people are lining up, calling in to say, hi, I'm Sandra's friend, and she told me that Matthew Farwell put her in a headlock and snatched her phone from her and stated, quote, I wish you would die. I want nothing to do with this baby. But he says larceny. And that when she showed him a sonogram, he pushed her to the ground and said, that's not my child. I want nothing to do with you. He says larceny. He believes that Sandra Birchmeier has self-exited. He said based on the physical evidence, personal notes discovered, as well as the medical examiner's findings and medical determination, she self-exited. He writes in his report about Sandra Birchmeier that yes, Trooper Garino did eventually discover text messages between Farwell and Sandra Birchmeier, but really all it did was indicate that there was a relationship between them. However, Sandra communicated often with friends and family, and it appeared that Sandra had sexual relations with other men in the months leading up to her death. There were no threats of harm by any of these individuals, including Matthew Farwell. Side note, all of this is happening after Matthew Farwell was caught lying to state troopers about his relationship with Sandra. First, he told them that they only started having relations after she was of age. They've only had relations a few times, and the last time that they've been intimate was a long time ago, which is all entirely false, and the troopers should have discovered that very quickly on. And I do want to say, just like the Karen Reed case, why does every trooper have a problem with the victims? Why does every trooper have a problem with really anyone that's not law enforcement? Because the way that everyone is saying that, oh, well, Karen Reed was snarky, Karen Reed was this, it's just like these snide side comments that are just weird to come from law enforcement officers who are supposed to be objectively investigating a case. When the Canton police write their report on Sandra Birchmeier, they dog on her apartment for being messy. They're like, looks like nobody's cleaned it in months.
I remember.
99% of new authors don't realize what it actually takes to get a book into the world. And honestly, when I finished writing my book, I thought I was done, like most of us do. But publishing a book is a whole different journey. It's not just about a good draft. It's editing, cover design, formatting, marketing, and every part needs a completely different set of skills. Fiverr made it easy for me to find experts who could fill the gaps and turn my draft into something I'm truly proud of. Instead of spending hours embracing the steep learning curve of skills I don't have, I could just reach out to people who know what they're doing, all in one place. So thanks to Fiverr, I can focus on what I'm good at and what I love, and leave the rest to the experts.
Yeah.
But you know what's interesting about Fanning? In his free time, this guy belongs to a group chat.
Michael Proctor?
Yes.
The no nudes yet
Yeah.
group chat?
Yes. A year after Sandra Birchmore's murder, Michael Proctor texts, "No nudes yet." And he was part of that group chat. He's actually a supervisor for Michael Proctor as well as Yuri Buchanek is, and so is Tully. Fanning was investigated briefly by the MSP Office of Professional Integrity and Accountability, which sounds like a make-believe department, but he's briefly investigated over...
Wait, what's his department one more time?
It's the MSP Office of Professional Integrity and Accountability.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. It's like if we had a department of silence and peace and quiet. It just, doesn't mix. That's what they have. He's investigated. He says that he didn't see the text message. And the investigation shockingly ends with, quote, "insufficient evidence to either prove or disprove if John Fanning failed to reprimand Proctor as his supervisor."
Do all of these people still have their job? Has anybody received any punishment or?
Yes. So Michael Proctor is fired, but he's appealing that. Yuri Buchanek is put on desk work, as well as ATF Bryan. They're both put on desk work.
What does that mean?
Desk work means you're not on the field.
Yeah.
You're just doing some administrative paperwork until, usually this is what this means in the law enforcement world. You're on the desk until everybody online shuts the fuck up about this case, and then you can go back and do your job. Or not do your job, which is what you were doing in the first place.
So nothing.
Nothing. He did lose 5 vacation days as well. Brian Tully has been transferred to a different department. Again, could easily be transferred back. They made it sound like it was a big deal. It doesn't sound like it's a big deal at all. It seems like the only one that has a big deal is Michael Proctor, which he might even get his job back. And this guy, Shannon Burgess, which we're going to get into in a little bit. He's not even a law enforcement officer.
What does purple mean again?
Purple just means important.
But not like, okay, got it.
Yes. Fanning claims that he never saw those group chat messages of the no nudes yet. And to be fair, there is no proof that he ever responded. There's no proof that we know of. However, there is another strange incident during Karen Reed's trial. The defense, they know of Fanning. They know of his connection to Sandra Birchmore's case. They know of his connection to Trooper Proctor's text messages. They know. They don't like Fanning, clearly. And Fanning, just like Trooper Proctor, should have no connection with how this trial proceeds forward. Just as how Buchanek, who is also part of the group chats, he was in the group chats, he is a witness, but he should not be touching this trial. He should not be facilitating anything in this trial, right? Because that would be crazy. There is a strange incident during Karen Reed's trial where a juror is dismissed. And according to a netizen comment who worded it as simply as possible because it gets a little convoluted, an anonymous person is outside. And they hear a juror talking about the case. How do they know it's a juror? I don't know. Maybe the juror said, "I'm a juror on the Karen Reed case." I have no clue. But an anonymous person is like, "I heard a juror talking about the case. I'm going to go report it to this random person, John Fanning, a trooper. Am I going to report it to Adam Lally? Am I going to report it to Auntie Bev? No, I'm going to report it to this random trooper, John Fanning. Well, Lieutenant John Fanning, who then is going to tell a court officer. Then that court officer is going to go tell Auntie Bev, who's going to question the juror. The juror is going to deny the accusation and say, "I never, what are you talking about?" But the juror is ultimately dismissed.
Shady, huh?
Why would an anonymous person, we don't know who they are, report it to Lieutenant Fanning of the Massachusetts State Police? They don't report it to Michael Morrissey's office. They don't report it to Auntie Bev. They don't report it to a court officer. They don't report it to Adam Lally. Why wouldn't they just go straight to a court officer themselves? The defense has asked the court to get more information from John Fanning about this whole incident, but that is denied by Auntie Bev. Attorney Jackson actually pops off on Auntie Bev saying, "We were told that he was the commander of the extensive security operations in this case. It's reasonable to conclude from that statement that Fanning was either directly in charge of or in charge of the jurors, which the court is now telling me he wasn't. We reasonably concluded that this doesn't make any sense." He's saying it doesn't make sense, okay? We were never allowed the opportunity to find out exactly what his role was because the court refused our request at the time. Here's what we know about Lieutenant Fanning. He's among the troopers that one of Michael Proctor's supervisors that was included in the text chain when Trooper Proctor said he was going through my client's phone looking for nudes. He's the source to whom something was reported about juror misconduct. And when you couple those two things together, it's unreasonable to conclude that he was at least, within the the orbit of security operations governing the jurors? Like, what does he have to do with the jurors?
Yeah. That's weird. It's like even when the Diddy case you guys were doing, if there's something suspicious or something like that, you report it to the court. You report directly to the authority, not to a state police.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
If you ask John Fanning, if Auntie Bev was like, okay, attorneys, ask John Fanning, and he's like, yeah, it was my neighbor, and they didn't know who else to tell, and they were just telling me because they thought it was weird, but they didn't know the rules. Even that would be weird because of his position in all of this, and the juror denied it. I feel like it would still require further investigation, especially on the defense part. But the fact that Auntie Bev won't even allow the questioning is bizarre. And the defense says there was no evidence presented at the time, as the court knows. There was no declaration, there was no report, there was no supporting documentation whatsoever over the defense's objection that is, very... Also, this juror is potentially defense-friendly.
Right.
Seems to show a lot of likeness for the defense team during the trial. To which Auntie Bev is like, well, he doesn't have any charge over the juror, so move on. That's all she says. Jackson asks her to prove, and she says, we're going to move on. And it's so bizarre that a lot of the comments read, she has already decided beforehand that she was going to interrupt him and say moving on. Every time she has no answer, she shuts Attorney Jackson down and says, let's move on. Let's move on? What about the issue at hand? What do you mean, let's move on? Which, at the very least, this guy just does not deserve to have a job, in my opinion, John Fanning, let alone in police work. But it's just suspicious that in both cases that Fanning is involved in, that the state troopers report there's nothing weird about this case at all. Side note, that's another thing that the feds pointed out was crazy, is that a lot of Sandra Birchmore's family have come forward to say, hey, we did find something suspicious at her house. So after the police cleared out of her apartment, we had to go clean her apartment, and we found her favorite necklace, her prized necklace, which is this necklace with a chain and a pink flamingo. It was on the ground with clumps of hair. Why would it be on the ground with clumps of hair? They're telling the authorities, I'm telling you, this is weird, right? The feds look at the crime scene photos, which obviously have not been released for obvious reasons, but they say what's even more alarming is that that necklace was not on the ground. That necklace was on Sandra Birchmore's body in the crime scene photos. It was broken and it was hanging, dangling off of her neck with clumps of hair. Do any of these people put that in their reports? No. You know what they put in their reports? Quote, trash and clumps of cat fur on the carpet indicating that it had not been cleaned or vacuumed in some time.
Wow.
When the troopers later are asked about the security footage where you can clearly see Matthew Farwell, I mean, he's a tall guy as well. He's got a very specific build. It's him. His car rolled up to the apartment. It's him. They are very cautious with their wording, stating the man is a male believed to be Matthew Farwell. One of the state officers working this case used to be a former Stoughton police officer, which Matthew Farwell is a Stoughton officer. Yuri Buchanek had spent a lot of time in Stoughton. I believe he lived there at one point. So there's a lot of connections with these small towns. Do they mean anything? Do they not mean anything? I don't think any single person online would be putting these weird dots together being like, oh, they all lived in the same town, as something nefarious, except for the fact that they are all conducting themselves like weird villains.
Yeah.
But following Sandra Birchmore's death, it seems maybe the only police department that maybe a little bit did something. Well, I don't even want to give them that much praise, but the Stoughton police, they did place Farwell firmly on administrative leave very quickly. I think Stoughton PD does have a female police chief, like one of the first female police chiefs. Some netizens were saying, well, maybe it's that. Some are saying, well, no, she still sucked. It really depends. But at the time, apparently Farwell went to a bar with a local coworker. He goes to this local bar with a coworker, and during that meeting, he tells the coworker that he did have intimate relations with Sandra Birchmore. However, at no point during that conversation did he express any grief, sadness, or remorse about her passing. In fact, he told that person that he was very angry with the MSP for looking into him. He also participated in a joke at one point, I don't know why there's a joke to begin with, about the fact that she was found on a closet door. I guess a bunch of officers were laughing at it.
He was telling a buddy?
Yeah.
Another police?
He was like, yeah, I did have intimate relations with her. And he expressed no grief that she passed. And then he was like, but I'm just kind of pissed off that these troopers are looking into me.
And the buddy reported this?
Yes. And yet, Fanning and the troopers find zero evidence that could point to Sandra Birchmore's death as being anything but a self-exit. Meanwhile, the feds say, This is literally crazy. It's right there. Not only is it Matthew Farwell, it's his twin brother, also a police officer, and their supervisor, Robert Devine. And all three of them have been involved in her life since she was a young teenager and exploited her for nearly a decade. The investigator for the feds who combed through a portion of the messages says he wanted to wash his eyes out with holy water after seeing some of those messages.
You ready?
Yeah, I got this.
What happened to his twin brother and his supervisor?
I think they're all put on leave, but I don't know if they've been arrested yet. The state troopers, they never caught that. Why would they? Usually there is a synergy in the courtroom that opposing counsel have, and typically you would hope that the judge at least appears to be a neutral force in the courtroom, which is why we called Judge Arun Father Arun, because it was like a dad and his kids all fighting each other and arguing, and then he's like, okay, kids, calm down. And I use that term specifically because he never showed favoritism, which is a very important deal. Even if you are biased against or for the defendant, you need a judge that does not show favoritism to one side or the other, because that could cause appellate issues, that could cause justice issues. It's a big problem. We have no clue what's going on with the three groups of people, if they actually like each other, but usually there is this synergy that's supposed to be preserved. People think that's not happening in this case. That is not happening in this case. There is one viral moment where Karen Reed, she is sitting at the defendant table, and it's gone viral. She's sitting there. Alan Jackson is passionately disagreeing with the judge about the verdict slip, arguably the most important piece of paper during the entire trial, the piece of paper that the jurors take back to the jury room to determine the fate of Karen Reed's, entire life. He says the fact that there's no box to check not guilty for lesser charges, or really most of the charges, is absurd. Auntie Bev is saying, well, it's always been done that way. If they find her not guilty, they just don't check the guilty box.
This verdict slip, as submitted to the jury, is exactly how it always is in Massachusetts.
I don't really care how it always is in Massachusetts. I care about whether or not it's appropriate.
It's appropriate.
Different things.
It's appropriate.
For a superior charge, they have to decide that she is not guilty of the superior charge, and that is the starting point of whether or not she is guilty or not guilty of any subordinate charge. How do they decide that she's not guilty of the first subordinate charge, involuntary manslaughter?
Okay. Anything else you want to say, Mr. Jackson?
I'd like an answer from the court. How do they decide that she's not guilty of involuntary manslaughter on that verdict?
That's their decision to make.
And how do they make it if they don't have an option to check a box that says not guilty?
They don't check the box that says guilty, do they? And then when they go to the next block, they don't check the block that says guilty, and on the top, you're left with not guilty. Okay?
And he's like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You don't think that's crazy?
That is weird.
And she's just not hearing it anymore. And perhaps Karen Reed smirks at the fact that her life is on the line on this singular sheet of probably an A5 piece of paper, and she can't even decide what goes on there. Or maybe it's the fact that Auntie Bev clearly made up her mind prior to all of this, because she's fighting with Alan Jackson, and then eventually she's like, we've always done it like this. David Yannetti, who's a local attorney, is like, well, I've never seen it like that. And then she's like, well, I don't care. She just does not care. She's like,
she said, I don't care?
Basically. She's like, well, I disagree.
It's the absence of the check mark that the court determines is the not guilty finding by the jury.
Yes, that's what the verdict slip reads. It reads not guilty. If they don't check block 2, 3, or 4, the verdict slip reads not guilty. Okay? Mr. Yannetti, you've seen verdict slips exactly like this. Okay?
I actually haven't, Your Honor. I have not seen a verdict slip there where not guilty is not an option for the defendant.
Okay. I disagree with you.
Or maybe it's the fact that Auntie Bev already made up her mind, or I don't know what it is, but also she's on trial for murder that she, in my opinion, and also legally, did not commit. Karen Reed smirks, smiles, and Auntie Bev's head snaps in her direction. This is funny, Miss Reed? The courtroom goes silent. So we're done here. And with that, Auntie Bev storms out.
All right, excuse me. This is funny, Ms. Reed? All right, we're done.
All rise for the court, please.
What?
In an interview, Karen says that at one point she just wanted to ask Auntie Bev, the judge, is this a game? Is this a game to you? Because she's like, my life is on the line. Like, is this a game? Auntie Bev also has a very unique way of running her courtroom. She likes to sit right next to the witness in a black office chair, and she will just swing side to side from her office chair like she's testing them out at Staples. She looks like she's in a meeting about what people want to do with the communal restroom towelettes, if they want to switch them to a different brand or if they want to stay with Georgia Pacific. That's the vibe she gives me in the middle of a witness testimony. Her mic is on. It does not relay directly into the courtroom, but all the live streams can hear it, and it's just... Okay, Mr. Yannetti. Okay, Mr. Jackson. I don't know what it is. Also, another thing is Father Arun was very quick with any objections during examinations. If he overrules the objection, just a quick overruled. It's overruled. It's overruled. Or a soft sustained, which is rephrase the question, or a firm sustained. That was it. Those were like the 3. Maybe 4 if he didn't know the grounds, so he would ask grounds and then they would tell them the grounds. Auntie Bev, this is the new catchphrase out there, which is, I'll allow it. I'll allow it.
I'll allow it. I'll allow it. I'll allow it. I'll allow it. I'll allow it. I'll allow it. I'll allow it. I'll allow it.
Instead of overruled, it's I'll allow it. That's her version of overruled, and now everyone online has made a meme out of her. They said, I'll allow it. House long till I'll allow it. Okay, which kind of sounds mean because she's technically just doing her job as a judge, but that's not what it feels like to netizens. It feels like this judge just does not like the defense at all. Not nearly as much as she likes the prosecution. It feels like she doesn't like them even a tiny crumble. Some netizens have noticed that the timing of her sighs are consistent with when the witnesses are caught in their own lies and the defense team goes down a list of questions that's going to rip them up more. She's just sighing when the defense has really good points. One netizen comments, there she goes sighing again. Bev sighing yet again. The judge is so biased, she's always sighing when the defense is doing a cross. Oh, Bev, your bias is showing again. Sometimes she'll sustain objections and not let the defense question witnesses on what netizens believe to be their right to a rigorous cross-examination, to which a lot of legal experts online have even said, I don't understand why she's sustaining those freaking objections. It doesn't even make sense. It's probably causing a lot of appellate issues later on. For example, when Carrie Roberts is caught in what can really only be defined as a lie about stating previously that she heard with her ears, heard Karen Reed ask Jen to Google how long to die in the cold, or well, hypothermia. And now she's saying, I misunderstood the question that was asked to me. I actually never heard her ask Jen McCabe that. Jackson is like, so you lied? Auntie Bev steps in and asks Carrie, was that a lie? Did you lie? Not intentionally. And Jackson is like, but you did. Not intentionally. Okay, and that's the end of that question. All right, is there any other question, Jackson, or is that it?
And that was a lie, correct?
Objection.
Was that a lie? Did you lie?
I did not intentionally.
But you did.
And
Not intentionally.
okay, that's the end of
Understood
this.
the question, Mr. Jackson.
To which a comment reads, why does the judge keep saving these goddamn witnesses? That lady lied. If you're a judge, you should want the truth from the witnesses. During Brian Higgins' testimony, one netizen comments, the fact that the judge prevented questions regarding him destroying his phone is corrupt. She was very careful about which questions she sustained, and a lot of them about him, I don't know, destroying his phone and throwing it away at a military base, a lot of them were sustained.
Last question, Mr. Jackson.
Did you remove the SIM card for that phone, drive onto a military base, throw the SIM card in one dumpster and the phone in a different dumpster?
That is not correct.
Did you testify that...
Was your one question, Mr. Jackson?
Questions would be asked and he wouldn't have to answer to them. Or there are other netizens that pick up small things, such as one netizen comment reads, judge didn't interrupt the prosecutors once during the direct. Let's see how often they interrupt the defense. Some netizens think it's less of that and more of, she just looks so over it. I mean, sure, someone's life is lost and another one's life is on the line, but quote, she's like the kid waiting for 4 p.m. to hit to throw everyone out of the courtroom. The way that when the workday is over, this lady is done. This lady is gone. She's over it, not a second more.
Is it kind of crazy going straight from Father Arun's courthouse to this case?
Yeah, and I I mean, I don't know because federal trials are not publicized as much, but from what we could hear from a lot of the court officers, Judge Arun is actually a little bit more of the patient ones. Federal courthouse judges are incredibly firm, they're sharp, they're crazy, in a better word, and it seems like there is a difference. The way that Judge Arun, Father Arun, would run circles on this woman, eat her for breakfast, lunch, and dinner without even lifting a single hair on his head or having a single bead of sweat on his glasses is kind of crazy. And to know that they all oversee cases is a little intense and terrifying. Especially this one. I'm sure there's a lot of incredible state judges, but Auntie Bev just, in my opinion, is not one of them. There's another particular moment that the internet has lost their minds over. It's when the defense is questioning a witness, Auntie Bev awkwardly reaches up towards her face and itches the side of her cheek. And after a little while, the prosecution objects to the line of questioning.
Some stuff just costs more. Except airfare. Find cheaper flights this summer on Kayak. Download now.
Auntie Bev quickly gives a big smile and says, okay, I'll see the attorneys at the sidebar.
Refreshes your recollection on any comments Mr. Whiffen made about Pakistan.
Objection.
I'm going to see you at sidebar for 2 minutes.
People think that's a sign that she had for the prosecution. That's how biased people believe her to be, and that's how crazy they think this trial is. And it is weird. It is suspicious. It appears the only time the majority of netizens have agreed with Auntie Bev is Crash Daddy, right here.
Crash Daddy?
That's what netizens call him. He's a crash expert witness for the defense. He actually worked for the FBI, but the jurors were not allowed to know that. They were hired. ARCA is the company that he works for, and we're going to talk about it in a second. They were hired by the FBI. They concluded that John's injuries were not a result of a car accident. He's the defense expert, and people call him Crash Daddy because out of, well, just look at all these people. He is conventionally very attractive. He's very sharp. He's very smart, intelligent, and he does not seem to hold a bias one way or the other. Even though he is testifying as a defense witness, he's also very intelligent in the sense that he does not get triggered on the stand when the prosecutors come at him for all sorts of gnarly things, and he's got dimples. So a lot of people have called him Crash Daddy, and they have a crush on him. Now, there is this moment where he walks in to be sworn in, and Auntie Bev, she's sitting in her swivel chair. She's swiveling, and she is eating this man alive with her eyes.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
And the comments read, the only time Auntie Bev and I have been on the same page this entire journey. Another comment reads, I'll allow it. Another comment reads, she got no eye contact, but she was chasing it. It seems like she was into him. In fact, the prosecutors fought really hard to make sure this man does not hit the stand because his juror appeal is pretty high. Like I said, he does not seem to hold a strong bias. He's very competent. He knows what he's talking about. And a lot of people say he's easy on the eyes. I wouldn't know. I'm married. But the prosecutors really did not want him on the stand. Auntie Bev allowed it. She'll allow it. And people think there's only one reason she allowed it. Yeah. So.
I mean, that is pretty crazy, though. Someone that credible to say that it wasn't a car crash?
Yes.
Then what else are we arguing here?
It's not even just him. It's also Honorable Crash Daddy, Dr. Rent. He's also part of ARCA. People love him as well.
So they brought multiple experts.
2 of the experts, yes.
And they all say it's not a car crash.
But the prosecutors bring their own experts.
Oh, yeah?
You're going to have a field day. One netizen comment reads, I understand why people suspect Auntie Bev is corrupt, but I find it difficult to accept it only because she's known that the feds are investigating this case. I feel like she simply has too much to lose by doing anything illegal to support the DA and the McAlberts. But at the same time, the netizen feels like if she truly has no undisclosed hidden secret conflict of interest, it just would be weird. Her conduct is unexplainable. It's just weird when you factor in that she used to be a criminal defense attorney along with her brother and her dad. So why the favoritism for the DA, who's brought murder charges based on what is at best the shabbiest car crash investigation since the invention of the internal combustion engine? It just doesn't make sense. Does she just want to see Karen Reed railroaded out of sheer spite? Could she hate Alan Jackson that much for no apparent reason? Is she somehow unaware that Reed is likely innocent of the homicide charges? I just don't get it. To which another netizen comments, I think her and the DA's office, Michael Morrissey, which by the way, her mom, Auntie Bev's mom, and Michael Morrissey's family have history. We don't know how deep that history, but they work together briefly. They comment, I think her and the DA's office have an understanding for a long time that they can force the outcome that they wanted in previous cases, which is pro-prosecution because it's the DA's office. Kind of like we run the hen house, if you will. Never get questioned, never had to answer for anything, and basically just did things their way, which I believe was the slam dunk plan in this case as well, until it wasn't. Now I think it's just an attempt to save face and try to act like everything is still the status quo and avoid backing down so as to not look like you're admitting to some prior shenanigans. For a limited time, we were able to sell Grandpa Mango's artwork, and it was a lifelong dream for Grandpa Mango. It started actually as a surprise for him, with just me, my husband, and my sister-in-law sitting down trying to figure out how to start an online store so that he could share his artwork that he has spent his lifetime drawing. And long story short, we wouldn't have been able
Alright, I'm gonna end the stream right here. I think I got all the base colors down. Then I'm just gonna finish it and go from there. So yeah, this is my Chun-Li drawing. And we'll finish it up later. I'm Giovanni Whole Art. You can follow me on Instagram, Blue Sky, Tumblr, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, and Patreon for more cool stuff. Links are in the bio. Alright, see you guys on the next one. Have a good one. Bye.